In the big 2026, someone somewhere is smoking weed, about to smoke, or talking about how weed is natural. That person might be you or your neighbor. And most people think of marijuana like it's a modern thing, like it started with hippies, rappers, dispensaries, or somebody rolling up with their friends in the park. But the truth is, humans have been using cannabis for thousands of years, longer than most countries have existed. Longer than most religions in their current form, and way before anybody called it devil's lettuce dope, weed, marijuana, zay, or gas. Because our relationship with cannabis didn't start in a smoke shop or in a lab. It started with a plant. Cannabis is one of the oldest plants humans ever used. Before people were smoking it to get high, they were using hemp to make ropes, clothes, fishing nets, and fabric. In parts of ancient East Asia, cannabis was being used as a fiber crop thousands of years ago, with some evidence of hemp use going back to Neolithic China and even earlier parts of Asia. So before cannabis was a drug, it was basically ancient technology. Think about that. Today, people argue over whether weed is good or bad, legal or illegal. But ancient humans were looking at the same plant like, yo, this can make rope, clothes, medicine, food, and smoke. That's a crazy resume for a plant. But the real question is not when did humans first use cannabis? The real question is, when did humans first start smoking it? And that answer takes us about 2,500 years back to the mountains of Western China. In 2019, archaeologists studied at a burial site called the Jirzhankal Cemetery, located high in the Pamir Mountains. Inside the tombs, they found wooden bowls or burners called braziers. These were basically ancient smoke bowls before bongs or pipes. When researchers tested the burned residue inside, they found chemical traces of cannabis. Not just regular hemp either. The evidence showed cannabis with higher levels of psychoactive compounds, meaning this wasn't just rope-making hemp. This was the kind of Mary Jane people were burning to get high. That means around 500 BCE, people in that region were burning cannabis and inhaling the smoke during funeral rituals. That's the oldest clear scientific evidence we have of humans smoking cannabis. Now here's what makes this so important. These people weren't just sitting around bored out their minds like, yo bro, you got the lighter. This was happening during burial ceremonies, funerals, rituals, moments where people were dealing with death, spirits, grief, and the afterlife. They placed heated stones inside wooden braziers, put cannabis on top, and let the smoke fill the space until it was a hot box. So the first confirmed weed smoking wasn't recreational like today. It was spiritual. It was a part of rituals. It was connected to death, and honestly, that changes the whole way you look at it. Because up until that discovery, people already knew ancient cultures used cannabis. But a lot of that evidence was about hemp, ropes, clothes, seeds, medicine. This was different. This was direct evidence that people were burning the plant for its smoke and probably for its mind-altering effects. And the location matters too. The Pamir Mountains sit near ancient trade routes that would later become part of the Silk Road. That means cannabis smoking might have spread through movement, trade, migration, and cultural exchange. People weren't just trading silk, horses, and spices. They may have also been trading plants, rituals, and ways to alter consciousness. And they weren't the only ancient people connected to cannabis. Ancient Chinese medicine used cannabis for different purposes. Some early Chinese texts describe parts of the cannabis plant being used medicinally. In other places, cannabis was tied to ritual, healing, and spiritual practice. Then you have the Scythians. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus wrote about Scythian people inhaling hemp smoke in tent-like spaces. According to his account, they would throw hemp seeds onto hot stones and breathe in the vapor. He described it almost like an ancient hotbox. So by the first millennium BCE, cannabis smoke wasn't just some random accident. Multiple cultures across Eurasia knew that if you burnt this plant up and inhaled it in, it made you feel different emotionally and physically. But this only scratches the surface. It's believed humans most likely discovered cannabis in stages. First, they used it for survival. They realized the stalks could be turned into fiber. That meant rope, clothing, nets, and tools. For ancient people, that was huge. A strong plant fiber could help you fish, hunt, build, carry, and survive. Then they realized the seeds could be eaten. Then they noticed the plant had medicinal effects, and eventually someone figured out the smoke changed how they felt. Maybe it happened by accident. Maybe somebody threw cannabis into a fire and noticed the smell. Maybe a group burned it during a ritual and realized it made the ceremony feel more powerful. Maybe shamans or healers started using it to enter altered states. We don't know who exactly was the first person to smoke weed, but we do know this. 2,500 years ago, humans were already doing it on purpose with the intent to connect and grieve. Not casual. They were doing it in tombs. They were doing it around the dead. They were doing it as part of ceremonies that probably meant something bigger than just getting high. So here's the full picture. Around 10,000 years ago or more, humans were already using cannabis or hemp-like fibers in parts of Asia. By the Neolithic period, cannabis was one of the most useful plants humans knew. By around 2,500 years ago, people in Western China were burning high-potency cannabis in funeral rituals. Around the same general era, ancient writers describe people inhaling hemp smoke in ceremonial spaces. And over time, cannabis spread across Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and eventually the rest of the world. So, marijuana didn't start with hippies, it didn't start with dispensaries, it didn't start with dead-headed Jamaicans or Bob Marley posters, rap songs, or somebody's cousin trying to roll up in the park. It started as a plant that ancient humans used for almost everything. A tool, a medicine, a ritual object, a way to connect with the dead, a way to ease the mind. Every time people talk about weed today, they're talking about a plant with a history way older than modern culture. The names changed, the laws changed, the pipes, papers, and lighters changed. But the idea stayed the same. Humans found a plant, they learned it could help them survive. Then they learned it could change emotions, and eventually they learned how to smoke it on the usual. And if you made it this far in the video, please be sure to subscribe and smash that like button.